My name is Gregory Possman, and I'm a Reverend Doctor ordained through the Universal Brotherhood Movement, Incorporated, based in Florida in the United States of America. Perhaps you've noticed that there are some days in our lives that change our lives drastically. I'd like to recount a story for you that's true, one of those days that changed my life drastically. This day occurred in the year 2011. I was in the small town of Vejle in Denmark on the island called Jutland. It was a Saturday morning, and on that morning I was scheduled to begin teaching a workshop that would last throughout Saturday and Sunday. I typically wake up around 6 a.m. in the morning, and this morning was no exception. After my normal visit to the bathroom, I turned on my computer and I found an email from my younger sister, Leanne Mason. The email was very short, and I remember it being approximately one sentence long. That sentence said that my 24-year-old nephew, Eric Patrick Cooper, had died last evening in a motorcycle accident. My nephew, who was typically called Patrick, was my sister's only son. He had been a soldier in the United States Army, and he had served a 2-year tour of duty in Iraq. I remember praying on many of the days while he was in Iraq for his safety. He was a dedicated soldier, a disciplined soldier, and he served his country with honor. He was honorably discharged, and having left the Army, he attended a motorcycle mechanics school in Orlando, Florida. Immediately after graduating from the motorcycle mechanics school, he found a job, not in the motorcycle industry, but in a warehouse in Orlando. He was moving large appliances like refrigerators, stoves, dishwashers, and so forth. It wasn't a job that he particularly enjoyed, however, it paid the bills and he did what was necessary. I think Patrick learned a great deal of discipline while he served his tour in the Army. And I believe that he matured considerably in that process. Patrick loved motorcycles. He loved adapting them, customizing them, and his dream was to have his own motorcycle shop, similar to the Orange County Cruiser type shop made famous on television. He ultimately wanted to design custom motorcycles. The reason that Patrick loved motorcycles is not known to me. I have a motorcycle and I love mine. I love riding it, I love feeling the wind on my face, and I love smelling all the smells of nature when I ride my motorcycle. Riding gives me an intense sense of freedom. I can't swear that Patrick loved his motorcycle for the same reason, but I suspect he did. Freedom is important to many of us here on the planet. Freedom to do what we like, freedom to be who we are, and the freedom to say whatever we desire. If I didn't have that freedom, this particular presentation wouldn't be possible. Freedom, although important, is not really the subject of my presentation today. The subject of my presentation today is twofold. The first part, and probably the most important part, is choice. The second part, which is also important, is about value. Let's talk about choice. Patrick chose to ride his motorcycle for his primary form of transportation, and he loved that motorcycle. It was a black Harley-Davidson with a small amount of chrome on it. Patrick had a number of tattoos which he had accumulated over the years. He was usually dressed in jeans and he had a black leather vest. Those were his choices. And though I've always chosen differently, I respected his right to express himself as he wished. Perhaps he found himself in those choices of personal expression. Perhaps he became, or thought he became, exactly who he was in those choices. The ability to choose in our lives is incredibly important. And the impact that those choices make on our lives is incredibly important. Patrick made the choice on that very fateful day when he passed into the other world to leave this planet and to die. In my belief system, it was a conscious choice. And my wife Sandy points out that perhaps he was finished with his work here on the planet. It seems ironic to me that having survived 2 years of incredible danger during his service in Iraq, that he survived only to end his life in a motorcycle accident in Florida on that day. We could argue forever whether Patrick knew what was about to happen or not. On some level, I suspect we human beings know everything that's about to happen, but probably not in our conscious minds, and that's what creates the surprises in our lives. That day changed my life drastically. I'm a father, a grandfather, an uncle, and a brother. There are many people in my life whom I care a great deal about. People whom I love a lot. Several years ago, my father died at the age of 82, and I became the patriarch in our family, the oldest male in our lineage, and I felt some sort of responsibility in that process, that rite of passage. And though I don't know exactly how to vocalize it, it seems as though I should serve as some sort of example to my family, based on that responsibility. Perhaps that's the reason that this presentation is so important to me. I felt very strongly that I needed to send a message to all of the young men in my family. And that brings us to the second part of this presentation, and that has to do with personal value. I'm not talking about our personal values that we might choose to illustrate in our lives. I'm talking about the value that we hold in the hearts of those members of our families or friends and the people around us. Patrick's death, though it may have been perfect in every respect, caused a tremendous amount of sadness. Sadness not only in myself, but for his parents, for those who love him, and those who knew him. The outpouring of grief, concern, and loss at his funeral, and the successive memorials that took place afterward was beyond expressive. I had no idea that Patrick had so many friends, and so many people who were concerned about his well-being. My message to you who are listening to this is the following. We may not value ourselves nearly as much as others in our lives value us. We may feel that our life is not going in the particular direction that we would like it to or wish it would. But one thing is certain. If you were to disappear off of this planet in the next minute, there are a tremendous number of people who would grieve your loss. There's a form of selfishness that I've practiced in my life, and it makes me tired. It gives me pause for regret, and luckily, I've become more consciously aware of it. This selfishness is feeling sorry for myself. It's the failure to have gratitude in my life for all that I have, all that I am, and all that I'm becoming. And this selfishness is my inability to understand, to appreciate, and to execute whatever difference I can make in the lives of other people. Because I believe in the end, those are the things that will make a difference in our own lives when our lives end. I believe in the Creator, whether one calls it God or Allah, Jesus, or whatever name might serve best in our own personal opinion. And I believe that when my life ends and when I meet that being, the most important aspect of the worth of my life and the value of it will be the difference that I made in the lives of others. That may be very difficult to focus upon when we're in the height of depression or sadness or upset. But if that might be your condition at this time, I'd ask you to take a moment and think about it. It's easy to engage in that selfishness, to swim laps in the pity pool, so to speak, and to find ourselves feeling sorry for ourselves. Certainly I'm not above it. I find myself in that place more often than I'd like. But the point is, there are so many people in our lives to whom we make a huge difference. Our friends, our children, our parents, our extended families, our teachers, our neighbors, and countless others. If we are so selfish as to only focus upon ourselves, we cannot make the appropriate choices. We can't make a huge difference in the lives of others and bring forth that feeling of self-gratitude that our soul absolutely relishes. So on this day, I wish to pay tribute to my nephew, Eric Patrick Cooper. I want Patrick to know how much I love him, how much I miss him, and how much I respect his choice, whether I agree with it or not. Patrick was a great man. He made a huge difference in the lives of many, and by his example, perhaps all of us can live a fuller, more enriched, contributing life. All the best to each of you.